I believe we talked about this before. We have things that are called perfect squares. For example, well, let's just look at this. So the square root of 16 is what? 4. Why? Because when you add square root, you're asking what same number times itself will give you 16. And that is 4. So 4 is the answer to that. And these are called the perfect squares, ones that work out. For example, the square root of 1 is 1. The square root of 2 is, sorry, we don't have a square root of 2. What's the next perfect square? The square root of 4. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 16 is 4. Square root of 25 is 5. Square root of 36 is 6. Square root of 49 is 7. Square root of 64 is 8. Square root of 81 is 9. Square root of 100 is 10. The square root of 121 is 11. Square root of, I guess it stopped at me. Square root of 144, 12. Square root of 169, 13, and so on and so on. But, okay, what about all the square roots that fall in between those? Like, for example, if I asked you about what is the square root of 30? Okay, square root of 30 is not a perfect square. And in reality, the square root of 30, all square roots that don't work out evenly, all square roots that don't work out evenly are called irrational numbers because they don't really make sense because they end up being like decimals that don't work out. But you should be able to find out what it's close to. And in order to do that, the book will say between what whole numbers is the square root of 30? Well, you think about where the square root of 30 falls in these perfect squares. The square root of 30 falls somewhere in here, right? Because it's between 25 and 36. So the square root of 30 has to fall somewhere between 5 and 6. Is it closer to 5 or closer to 6? It's hard to say because 30 is like pretty close to being right in the middle of those two. So the square root of 30 is between 5 and 6. Or if I asked you the square root of 73, between what two numbers would the square root of 73 have to fall? Well, look at your whole list of square roots here. So 73, Parker, falls between
8 and 9.
Right, between 8 and 9, because it would fall right in there. It's between 8 and 9. 8 and 9. Or the square root of 6, where what would be close to the square root of 6? What are two numbers would the square root of 6 be between? Wade?
2 and 3.
Yeah, it's between 2 and 3. And that's kind of the gist of what they'll ask you. They'll also ask you some harder numbers, like this, the square root of 400. Please. Sometimes this thing can be frustrating. The square root of 400. Is there a square root of 400? There actually is. How do you find it?
Divide.
Nope.
Times.
Nope.
Division.
The only way to do this is trial and error.
Thing.
Okay, trial and error. And that's where you sit and go, okay, well, what would be a guess? Well, you know that 10 times 10 is 100, that's too low. 30 times 30 is what?
900.
900, that's too high. 20 times 20 is exactly 400, so the square root of 400 is 20. Or the square root of 625. Again, trial and error, well, we already know it has to be between these two, right? It's gotta be between 20 and 30 because 400 is too low, 900 is too high. So what would you try? Well, let's do 23 times 23. What is that? 69 and 46. You get 529, that's too low. What would be another guess? Now, give you a little helpful hint here. This is a hint for you. The digit that it ends with is kind of a hint for you. You want to think of what number times itself will end in a 5 when you do this. So my guess is it's probably going to be 25 because 5 times 5 gives me a 5 ending digit. Because my next time I'm going to put a 0 down here because it's stuck doing with that. This is 125. 2 times 25 is 50, and when you multiply that out, it is 625. So the square root of 625 is 25. I mean, it's trial and error, but that doesn't mean you cannot use some sort of way to try to find that. How about the square root of 961? You know, we already did these. What would be your guess? What would you guess? It has to end in a 1. So you got to think about like 4 times 4 would have to end in a 6 because that's 4 times 4 is 16. 9 times 9 ends in a 1 because that's 81. So should I try 39 times 39?
No,
Why not?
because that ends in a 9 and that ends in a 1.
No, 9 times 9 ends with a 1.
No,
9 times 9 is
39
81.
ends in a 9, and that number does not end.
No, but that's not, that has nothing to do with it. It's what 9 times 9 ends with.
81.
So that ends with a 1. It's not what it ends with, it's what when you multiply it, it ends with.
Wait, I'm doing the math right now.
Well, I can tell you 39 is going to be too big because it's 39 times 39 is awful close to 40 times 40, which would be 1600, so that's way too big. 900, 961 are awful close, so I'm going to guess it's going to be 31 because 1 times 1 also gives me 1. I get 31 here, I get what? 0, 3, yeah, 961. So the square root of 961 is 31. Again, it's all trial and error. There's a long, complicated math sort of thing there, but we won't go into it. So there, you can get going on your, now Carter, what